Okay, folks, we're going to talk about energy, what I would call the energy crossroads of 2025. There's a huge shift happening right now. And for the purpose of this video, most of this I'll be talking about global implications, some of what we're seeing here at home. But 2025 is shaping up to be one of the most important years in energy history. Renewables are actually exploding despite the efforts of the Trump administration. Fossil fuel energy is facing new pressure. We have grids around the world that are under stress. But governments around the world are rewriting their energy policies basically in real time. So we're going to break this down for you here today. It's rather fascinating. The biggest story by far is renewables are growing faster than ever, which kind of possibly explains some of the Trump administration's resistance to it. Solar and wind are going to add record capacity this year. Remember, we're talking globally. And also in the United States, the EU, China, India, parts of the Middle East. It's growing rapidly. In 2024, renewables passed a huge milestone, generating over 40% of the world's electricity. And we keep hearing that renewables doesn't work. They're creating 40% of the entire world's electricity. You know, how can they not work? Solar is now the cheapest source of new electricity in almost every country in the world. We're seeing massive investments from governments, utilities, tech companies. Demand for clean power for data centers and big corporations is exploding. Rapid improvements in battery storage is another thing that's happening. You know, renewables are no longer the future. We still somehow talk about renewables as if this is something in the future. It's not. It's right. It's now. Like it's already happening. It's been happening. And there's, many would call them the foundation or the backbone of the new global energy supply. They just are. And, but growing pains, that creates a new challenge. And so that sort of leads to the next part of my video here. And that is electricity demand is skyrocketing. As we've talked about extensively, AI and data centers are swallowing power, electrification of cars, heat, industry, urban growth in Asia, Africa, Latin America. Demand is rising so fast that, we are entering a global grid stress period. This is not just something that's happening in the United States. Power systems have got to be built and upgraded for the new digital electrified economy. That is not what we currently have. We have a power system from, 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. And so I came up with some terms that you're going to hear a lot in the future. You're going to hear terms like grid bottlenecks, transmission delays, interconnection queues, flexibility shortages. You're going to hear about peak demand spikes. Even in wealthy countries like the United States, you're going to hear this. And developers, for whatever reason, they wait years to plug clean power into the grid. So while renewables are absolutely booming, the grid's struggling to keep up. This is something I've talked about extensively. And that's why a lot of countries are drastically increasing their investments in advanced battery storage. Long distance transmission lines are key. Microgrids. Microgrids is something you're going to hear about in the future. and a lot of other grid enhancing technologies. But we still have, a lot of problems here. We're facing the largest, energy bottlenecks in history over this next decade. And the reality is, the energy transition is happening. This Secretary of Energy will say there is no energy transition. Like, that's ridiculous. Of course it's happening. The problem is it's messy because we have this unbelievably dysfunctional government. So it's messy, it's uneven, it speeds up, it slows down. There's no congruency to it. And some places of the world are sprinting towards clean energy, and some aren't. And I would put us in the category as some that aren't. We're being drugged toward it, kicking, fighting, and screaming the whole way. And some countries are doubling down on fossil fuels. That's us. But that's just for right now, because that's how this country operates. The EU and parts of Asia are escalating renewables rapidly and phasing out coal. We're stuck in a political, tug of war over energy, direction, because we're so closely aligned with political donors and the people that control the purse strings, people that write checks. China is killing it. China and India are both killing it, and they're adding renewables and they're building all kinds of crazy stuff. But also China's also building coal plants at the same time to back them up. But even Middle Eastern countries who are the, fossil fuel havens, and African nations are investing record amounts of money into renewable energy. And so, energy analysts want to call this decade multi-speed, because everything's happening at different speeds around the world. There's no single global transition. There's dozens of national transitions happening at different speeds based on their economies, based on their politics, based on their culture, and even their geography. Geography plays a huge role in that. And so that makes the predicting of the future very complex and very complicated and difficult. And, so what that means is, of course, as I don't have to tell you, fossil fuels aren't dead yet, and they're not close to being dead yet. A lot of people think we can get off fossil fuels really quickly. We simply can't. It's not a thing. Demand for natural gas is growing rapidly and strong because it's seen as the bridge fuel. We're in the middle of this transition, and we're still rapidly increasing our use of the bridge fuel, which is natural gas. It's keeping the grid stable while renewables, scale up. And, so new LNG export facilities always coming online, especially in the United States, Qatar, Australia. Oil companies are doubling down on petrochemicals and other offshore projects. And petrochemicals is a burgeoning, booming industry, going to be a big industry in the future for fossil fuel companies. The demand for petrochemicals, people talk about peak oil a lot, and when are we going to start reducing our reliance on oil? Petrochemicals is going to put a stop to that. We're going to be relying on renewable energy for the vast majority of our electricity generation around the world. We're still going to be pumping out an enormous amount of oil to fuel the petrochemical industry. That's just a thing. So even as investments in fossil fuels fall in some regions, it's not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, the EIA recently came out and extended their peak oil forecast to sometime beyond 2050. So, the conversations around getting off fossil fuels, those are conversations that our kids and grandkids are going to be having too. Another major trending topic in sort of this area is the geopolitical competition around energy. I've said for a long time, he who controls energy controls the world. And we're in a new era of strategic energy rivalry. You've heard a lot recently about critical minerals, probably. That's sort of a newer term that we didn't hear about historically. You're hearing a lot about that now. EV batteries, of course, critical solar manufacturing, renewable technology, supply chains. Countries are fighting to control lithium, copper, nickel, and other rare earth elements. We have fought wars over oil. We're fixing to go into Venezuela over oil. I suspect in the future it's possible wars will be fought over those things as well. That's what we do. And of course, China dominates everything in those sectors. The U.S. and Europe are attempting to rebuild domestic manufacturing. Energy-rich nations are using oil and gas and minerals as leverage for rare earth, and conflicts are disrupting global supply lines. So the rare earth minerals, all the things I just mentioned, and there will be a day when those things are like the new oil. Those things will be the new oil, right? And so the geopolitical shift will determine which countries will lead the next sort of industrial revolution, and that will be driven around electrification, AI, and technology. So I've said a lot, but what does it all mean? I've been sitting here talking, saying all kinds of stuff, but what does it all mean? It means right now the world is sort of at a crossroads. And we have two possible futures. Future one, a high renewable, low emission world powered by cheap energy, smart grids with a ton of electrification. And the other path is a fossil fuel heavy world where energy security dominates and decarbonization slows. I believe the truth is, or the actual path is somewhere between those two is where we will land. Basically where we are, if you think about it. And both futures are kind of happening at once. And that's why I say that. So 2025 isn't the end of the transition. 2025 is like the deciding decade. We're in the middle of the deciding decade. What is our future going to look like? And with the way politics is happening, even with renewable energy setting all the records, massive investment, and even the president of the United States is just trying to destroy renewables. He's losing. And it may appear like he's not, but he is. He's losing badly in his war against renewable energy. And in addition to that, he's pretty long in the tooth. I'll just say that. So what countries around the world decide to do now is going to shape the world and energy systems for the next 200 years, possibly, So that's where we are. I really appreciate all you folks for watching. I hope you found this breakdown helpful. Please like, subscribe, share if you don't mind. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Let me know what you think in the comments section. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks.